folks, I'm Lily and this is Curatorial Knits. I am an art curator and knitter based in Northern California here in the kind of gloomy today Bay Area. I am really excited to be back. I've tried to film a couple times since my last episode, but it has been such a full fall for me and my little family. So it's been more time than I wished had passed between episodes. If this is your first time here, welcome. It is going to be a really fun kind of jaunty dive through knitting and some travel and some projects, and I'm really excited to get started. If you're returning, thanks for sticking with me, and I really appreciate you all being here. If this is the kind of content that you like and enjoy, I always forget to do this, but I wrote it down today. Do like and subscribe the video because it helps other people to find it, and it also gives me a sense of which videos people respond to, and that helps me decide what I'm going to talk about. So yeah, so much to get through, very exciting stuff. We're in the kind of high season of knitting, at least for me. I feel like there's just so much creativity that I feel like I'm surrounded by and that I'm inspired by, and particularly coming out of a yarn festival experience, it is really just this kind of high point of getting inspired and creativity and making things. And with that, all of that energy, I also feel like comes a lot of, for me, not necessarily overwhelm, but I realize I've really realized everything that I have active right now. So there are a few things I definitely want to catch up on, and I basically, like, here are the highlights, right? Like the headlines of what we're going to talk about today. One, I went to the Rhinebeck upstate New York festival for New York Sheep and Wool, and also for Wool and Folk. We're going to talk all about that. Number two, I might be a shawl girly now. I finished my first shawl. I have started many shawls. I have started 4 shawls. I have finished 1 shawl. And I think I'm gonna go back to at least one of my shawl whips, and I'm very excited about it. I have committed to some gift knits that I feel like I'm very glad to do and will never do again. I made the biggest knitting mistake of my knitting career thus far. I mean, let's not put a ceiling on this. Anything could happen. And that will be interesting. I need some radical accountability for my WIP situation. I'm going to go through all of my WIPs, both active and hibernating WIPs, in this episode. This could be a long one. I find these to be really kind of interesting to see where people's energy is going. And I'm going to use that time and space to kind of work through my priorities, if there's anything that I do want to frog, and just actually have an accounting, not just accountability. And this is our community of accountability, but also just a full like number in my head. I, for some reason, always think that I have 3 WIPs going, but it's very clear I have many more than that. So we're gonna get into that. And then another just kind of lovely announcement. My daughter is knitting, and I mentioned this on the last podcast because she asked me to get her some yarn at Reinbeck. She just turned 7. I'm like trying not to put any pressure on the experience, but she's really into it and it's super fun. And she actually asked for me to show something, so she went to the library and she checked out a book about kids knitting, and she actually wrote down all of the like guidelines in the introduction. So she was like, so I can remember. So it has all of this great information, like What is a pattern? What is finishing? What are abbreviations? Size, materials, gauge. Well, that's really important stuff. And she wrote down the word and then the definition. And this is all of the best practices on how to read a knitting pattern. So, I mean, she said, will you share this with people? So I am. I'm sharing it with people. Size is the measurement of your finished project. Materials is the list of yarn, needles, and any other supplies you'll need. Your gauge is how big your stitches need to be. And I gotta say, I find that a great way to think about gauge. Gauge is how big your stitches are. It is not how big your project is gonna be, right? That's the size. But it was just a friendly, helpful reminder to me, because sometimes I think about gauge as stitches per inch, and then I'm thinking about measurements. And gauge is a way of measuring, but what you're measuring is the size of your stitches themselves. And I just pro tip for the kids knitting. Anyway, I just thought that this was really fun and inspiring, and yeah, I won't read you all of it, but she did ask for me to share. These are some of the information that she gleaned from her kids knitting book, which was really awesome. And yeah, it's really fun. It's really fun to sit and knit with someone who lives in my house. I mean, kind of the best. And okay, so yeah, we're gonna do finished objects. I do have a few. Then we're going into the WIP down, figuring it all out. Then I'll talk about Reinbeck and some acquisitions that I made during the festivities in upstate New York, and maybe some plans after that. Sound good? All right, so first finished object, it's what I'm wearing. It's my Stick Season by Rebeca Clow, the Crea Bea Knitting Podcast hostess with the mostest. I love this sweater. I have worn it twice already this week. It is the perfect, for me, kind of elevated sweatshirt knit. I think the fit is fantastic. I might have a few too many sleeve stitches, but I actually think it's okay now that I'm stretching my arm out like this. It is really, really the perfect cut. The kind of signature detail, in addition to the little sticks in the textured yoke, is this wonderful faux seam shoulder construction that then continues along under the underarm and all the way down to your ribbing. It is super, super fun, and I would also say a very intuitive knit. One of the things I love about Rebeca's patterns is that they're really easy to read and very intuitive. She writes patterns, I mean, she's a knitter before, she puts the knitter's experience, I say, before everything else. And so I find her patterns really, really easy and streamlined. I couldn't recommend it more. I knit this not as an official test knitter, but I kind of sneaky previewed knit it because I really wanted to finish it before the Rhinebeck New York Sheep and Wool Festival, because I knew that I also knew that Rebeca was going to be there, in addition to it, I think, being the perfect fall autumnal piece. Stick Season, the name of the pattern, is actually taken from the name of a beautiful song by Noah Kahn, and it's very nostalgic and autumnal, really a kind of wonderful moment, I think. Anyway, I love this knit. I used Isager's Aran Tweed, which is not the most fun, I'm just gonna be super honest, on the needles. It's quite sticky, it's a little bit rough to handle, but it blooms like a gosh darn dream. It feels so light and airy. I have a small camisole on underneath this. It is absolutely prickle free for me. Obviously your sensitivities may vary, but I find this a very, very wearable yarn. It's breathable, but super insulating. I feel like I'm in a Patagonia commercial. It's like hardy, almost outdoor wear, but I mean, so refined. And I love the tweedy bits in this. This is the colorway Sand. I want to knit with this yarn again. I really, really like it. It's for me a really lovely blend of what I love about rustic yarns combined with the kind of refined Isager aesthetic, and, or is it Isager? I'm not sure. In any case, I love it. I want more of it in my life. I also want more stick seasons in my life. And Rebeca herself, I think, is actually making a plain one, kind of without the little sticks. And I would love to see how that works with this shoulder construction. I think that could be really beautiful. And since I know I love the cut of this, I can definitely see that in my knitting future, and I may have some yarn in mind for that. So very, very exciting stuff. Finished object numero uno. Finished object numero dos. This is my fleur. It's my shawl. It's a fleur shawl. This is part of the Fleur Along Knit Along hosted by Jackie and Carmen from the Meaningful Stitch podcast, who you will hear a lot more about closer to the end of the session when I get into all my Rhinebeck goodies and goodness, because they were my roommates and Airbnb mates and absolute divine humans. So much fun. This shawl I would not have made if it were not for them, and I finished it. That's the kind of punchline of this, guys. I finished a shawl. I love it. I have not woven in any ends. I have not blocked it. I'm already wearing it. I had a full-on grandma moment the other day where it was a little chilly in bed. And I thought, maybe I'll just throw on a shawl. Just a little shawl around my shoulders while I sit here in bed. And I did, and it was delightful. I've also worn it out. This color is stunning. This is from Sonder Yarn Co. This is the Grace base held with the Halo, which is their mohair. Grace is a single of superfine merino. It's beautiful. I mean, talk about a delight. It went very quickly for how many stitches are really in this. I also knit it over a range of time, lots of planes, trains, and automobiles as I traveled from California to New York to Chicago to Sheboygan, which we'll also get into. It was super fun. I loved knitting this. I love wearing this. I am on board the shawl train. So that's progress. That's pretty exciting progress. And I just love it. It is a free pattern. It's part of this knit along that I mentioned, and I actually already have the yarn wound up for another one. I will not be casting it on yet though until I work through some of my WIP situation, which we will get into in just one moment. And I have another finished object that I forgot to bring. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. This is the Purl Soho 1x1 classic ribbed beanie, or is it classic ribbed hat? It is super fun. Their pattern is written for a sport or light DK weight yarn. I fudged the numbers and knit this in more of a worsted weight. This is for one of my coworkers, the lovely and amazing Matthew. And it is pretty cold in the gallery where I work. I've mentioned this before. It's chilly. The building is still in it's basically a raw space that's been beautifully retrofitted, but it has these massive ceilings, huge skylights. It's very, very beautiful, but it's also very raw and almost impossible to temperature control, particularly in the art storage area, which is where our photographer, our art handlers, and our registrars' desks and offices are. And so I think that Matt, who's one of our expert, he works both as an installer and then he's an expert on the digital art that we work with. We work with two really significant technology-based artists, and Matt is an absolute genius at installing those, and he goes all over the world working on that. And I don't want him to get cold. So this is knit up in some leftovers of my Wandering Flock. That's that beautiful rust tone. And then I also had some of the Volare, which is the really dark teal colorway, the Birdie from Lamb & Kid, which we will be talking more about. And I had some of that left over from my Please Don't Ask cardigan, which it turns out is one of my most worn knits also right now. I'm loving the heck out of that. And I held that with a strand of the Sandness Garn Alpaca Pure, and that created this really juicy, squishy fabric that I think will also hold a lot of its shape because of that strand of silk in there. So very happy about this, and it's done. I have 6 coworkers, so I have 5 more gift knits to accomplish. As I mentioned, I'm very delighted to be doing it. I will not do it again. I think my goal for next year is to have clean needles going into 2025. I think I'm just gonna put that out there. There's no way I'm gonna get there this year. It's not possible. I'm gonna let that go. But I think by this time next year, I would like to be going into the new year with kind of a very clean slate, really open to more possibilities and less kind of just trying to finish things up, which is how I feel right now. Which is gonna get me to my WIPs. And I'm gonna get my notes because I might need them. Okay, so we have the first hat of 6 done and dusted. Amazing. Hat number 2 is for my dear and darling Laura. We actually share an office, and she's amazing, and I feel really lucky to be able to work with her. She came to the gallery actually from Christie's, and when I was at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, I worked really closely with her on a number of projects, which was really cool. So now we actually like work together. And this is a to gauge version of the Purl Soho simple ribbed hat, and I'm knitting it in 1 strand of the stunning Chelsea Luxe yarn that I used. Oh my gosh, look at those speckles. Oh, it's looking so good. The Chelsea Luxe fingering with these beautiful speckles, and then I'm holding it together with a strand of Explorer Knits and Fibers really beautiful Suri alpaca silk, and this color is called Cliffs of Moor. It is such an amazing gray. It's cool but variegated. Does have a lot of blue undertones, and it's like a really neutral, I would say a sophisticated neutral. I knit an entire sweater of this in the solid, and then holding this for my husband, and it's so pretty. It's fantastic. So I think this will hopefully keep Laura nice and toasty. She's a great skier, so hopefully when she's up in Tahoe, she'll be nice and warm and snuggly with that. I then have 4 other planned hat/cowl gift knits for my coworkers. I'm doing this for the lovely Brooke. I'm using my Lamb & Kid Todd in the color Pistachio, which I love. Really excited to use this, and I think this will also be a hat for her. And I'm thinking I might actually hold it with the Knitting for Olive Dusty Artichoke, just to give it a little bit of sheen and a little more sophistication. And then I have a Spincycle, what's it called, Nutiden in the World, Dream State hat that I'm planning, but I'm not, okay, I'm not technically counting these as WIPs, right? Like, can we give, yes, these are not yet WIPs. These are just plans. I should really focus on the actual WIP down. Okay, so really WIP number 1 is Laura's hat. That's what we're calling it, as WIP number 1. WIP number 2, you all haven't seen before, and I'm hoping I can finish it in the next week. I had no business casting it on, and I don't care because it's amazing. This is my instant crush, and I am instantly crushed on it. It is so pretty. I love it. And oh yeah, the colors look so good. This is all from the Lamb & Kid. It is their Suri alpaca base called Birdie. It's held double. I completely went for it because of the sample that was in the Lamb & Kid booth at Woolen Folk. It's so pretty, and I had so much fun knitting this. I knit the whole body in like 3 weeks, and I'm so glad I did. This is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. It's my first Joji Locatelli pattern. I've been wanting to make a lot of her work, and it is a colorwork raglan. So my very first version of that kind of construction. All of my other colorwork yoke sweaters and even the all over colorwork sweater I've done have all been circular yoke constructions. So I will say that the charts were a bit intimidating for me, not having navigated a colorwork raglan chart before. Once I kind of got the hang of it, it was fine, but it did take some doing. I'll also say that it's a super size inclusive pattern, which is fantastic and means that there are many, many, many charts. The pattern is charted out for the body and the sleeves for every single size, and that means that, first of all, the fit is amazing. Like, body be bangin', it looks great. It also means, though, that the pattern is very long and thick, and you really have to pay attention to which chart you should be working from. I did work from the wrong chart for a few rows. It ended up being fine, but that's just kind of my, word to the wise. I absolutely love it. I may be planning another one of these. I was thinking it would be really fun to do it as a Christmas sweater and do more kind of holiday, like a kind of red, a maroony red maybe, and a really beautiful, maybe a light green and maybe a pink or something like that, just to kind of throw folks off the obvious Christmas track. But I thought that could be really fun, and I would love to do another one. I did freestyle the end bottom here a little bit just because the pattern called for another full repeat of this motif, which I thought was going to take it a little longer than I wanted it to go, and it worked out really well. It fits, again, really, really beautifully already unblocked, and I know it's not going to stretch a ton because of that silk core on Birdie's Suri silk blend. So I have big dreams that I could finish this for Thanksgiving, but I've only knit one row on one sleeve. So that would be a lot of knitting to do in a week, but less than a week. But I'm a girl with a dream, and you never know. A girl with a dream and some caffeine can get a lot done. So we'll see what happens, but I love the process of knitting this, and I'll also say that part of the process that makes this such an enjoyable knit and makes the activity of knitting it so special is that I was able to pick out all the yarn for the project with Jackie and Carmen and Sarah, the owner of the Lamb & Kid and the dyer. as well as Jackie Rose from the Caddy Jacks Knitting podcast and other folks who were around the booth at the time. And we will get into the absolute mayhem and disaster area that was the physical experience of folk. But I will say that for me, the social experience had some incredibly joyful, beautiful moments. And this was a real high point for me of, I kind of want to say my whole knitting year was putting together color palettes in person with beautiful yarn with my friends. It was really, really special. So thank you, as always, to Carmen and Jackie for helping make my instant crush. And I can't wait to see theirs as well. I think we've been sending little snapshots of them to each other as they're being knit up, and that's been really fun and exciting too. So love, love, love my instant crush. So that's my second WIP, all right? We're 2 WIPs. WIP number 3 is my Felix cardigan. I don't know if I had cast this on. At my last podcast, I'd have to double check. This is something where I don't know why. I did it because I wanted to knit on it during my travels, but I already had this guy like ready to go, so I'm not entirely sure what that was about. That said, it's gonna be beautiful. I absolutely love it. I'm holding 1 strand of Nutiden in this steel gray Stila color. Oh God, it's good. Oh, she's so good. I mean, really, really remarkable. It's just like knitting with a cloud. And I'm holding 1 strand of this with 1 strand of this baby, which I've been saving for, I guess, 2 years now. This is the Qing Fibers Melted Baby Suri, which is Suri alpaca plus wool, all wrapped around a silk core. And this colorway is called Whale, and it's kind of my ideal color story. It's like if a Parisian French gray blue took went for a surf, went surfing, because there's this incredible green tinge to it, and there's moments too where there's little flashes of almost an electric green teal through the gray blue. And I identify with this colorway in more ways than I could say. I could talk about it for a while. It's coming out really beautifully there. It's variegated, but it's a really soft variegation, so I'm not worried about any pooling or striping. And I have these wonderful little eyelets from the Felix cardigan. This is designed by Amy Cristofers. I cast on another one in Nutiden a couple years ago, and it just for some reason wasn't singing to me. I ended up frogging it pretty, not immediately, but pretty quickly. I'm doing 3 repeats of the eyelets, and then I might actually go ahead and knit my collar now just to get a better sense of the fit before I split for sleeves. I think that's kind of why this is in its current state. I can kind of do a little drape over here. Because it needs its collar, but then I think it will be ready. I don't want to go much further down, and yeah, I'm excited about this. I really think I'll wear it a ton. It feels so beautiful on my skin, and I really am looking forward to wearing this. So again, great project. It's a quickish knit too. These, talk about gauge. I mean, the stitches are pretty large on this bad boy, and I think that I could this will be a really nice, maybe like Christmas vacation knit, maybe when I'm kind of home and feeling easy about it. So that is WIP number 3. Okay, WIP number 3. Next up, this is kind of a fun one because it was stalled out for quite some time. I started this in August. This is the Sonder sweater from the Petit knitter, and I knit this all, oh my gosh, it's looking so good. I knit this all using Bonnybrooke Farms undyed Finn sheep wool, and it feels like a dream. The consistency of the Finn sheep is just stunning. The shine also of the yarn. I got this at Reinbeck last year, and my goal was to try to knit it up and wear it to the festival this year, and then I realized I was running out of yarn. So I stalled out on it, and I was very lucky because the main color is what I really needed. I'm you know, done with most of the color work, though I do want to do, I'm really loving my kind of like athletic striping in the ribbing for these color work sweaters. I did this on my Azucena from La Bien-Aimé's amazing book, Worsted, and Corey Worsted, and it's a very pale, low contrast color work, but very traditional looking, and I added this kind of racing stripe around the collar and on the cuffs, and I think it's really effective. I'm really enjoying that, so I'm going to do that again here. But I was running out of my main color, but very luckily, I have more. It's almost nearly there. I think this will just be used basically I'll use this in the hem and on the sleeves, because I do have a skein and a half more in the original colorway, but I think it's very nearly exact, even though these are years apart. So this is the 2023 version, and this is the 2022 version. This is stockinette in the round. This is just get her done knitting. I think I might be bringing this up to Portland with me. I'm going to Portland for Thanksgiving to hang out with my beautiful niece and beautiful brother and sister-in-law. And I think that maybe, you know, if I could get the body done over the Thanksgiving holiday, that would be pretty exciting. And then knock out the sleeves and get this off my list, because this is WIP number 4. WIP number 4. Okay. We're not even close. All right, we are close. We're somewhat close. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. Ba-ba-da-ba-da. Okay, one moment. Sorry, I had to fetch it. Okay. Which shows you how long it's been since I knit on it. This is WIP number 5, the satellite shawl, because as I said, I'm now a shawl girly. I get it, I understand, I'm here. I cast on the satellite shawl by Andrea Mowry like 18 months ago. It was the summer of 2022, and oh man, am I halfway there? No, I'm probably a third of the way through. It looks beautiful. This is from a kit that was co-created with La Bien-Aimée and A Verb for Keeping Warm, which is a beautiful hand dye and yarn store in Berkeley, California, where I live. And oh, the colors are great. I know I'll wear it a ton. Your girl has her brioche going. I mean, what's not to love? This is my first or second time doing brioche. I mean, it looks fantastic with this sweater. I mean, what a pairing. That would be fabulous. This is, I don't know when I'm gonna get to this. I feel like this is really good. There are parts where you really need to concentrate, but once you start the section, you're really good to go. So I think I've done 8 out of 20 some sections, like 24. So yeah, that would be exactly a third of the way through. So I think if I break it up section by section too, it'll feel less overwhelming. And maybe I just try to do a section a week and get this done for spring. I think that might be a nice way to think through it. And this is WIP number 5. Okay. Yeah, definitely more than 3 WIPs happening. All right. WIP number 6 is definitely like the knit of shame, I would say. This is a gift knit for my husband that I started over the summer. It's super cute. I have no business not knitting on this. It's really, really fun. I've done 2 rows since my last podcast. It's the High Lonesome by Caitlin Hunter. The yoke is gonna fit him perfectly. I literally sabotaged this, took the needles out, started knitting on my Instant Crush with them. So yeah, needles have to go back onto this. I have to get this done. I'm not sure where this lands in the queue, but I'm thinking after the Sonder body is done, maybe I focus on this yoke and finish that off. I think that could be a good order of operations. That is the High Lonesome by Caitlin Hunter. I am knitting it in Spincycle's Dream State, which is their thicker color changing yarn. And my main color is Purl Soho's Good Wool. It's a really great combination. I just need to get some time on it and get back in the groove with it. So that is WIP number 6. Eek. Okay. WIP number 7 is also put away. I don't know why I did that. So sorry. Okay. WIP number 7 is, first of all, so much yarn. And I'm a little concerned about just how oversized it's going to be. But this is the Guernsey Gensler by the Sandnesgarn pattern book, which is called Soft for Woman. I am knitting it in Sandnesgarn's Double Sunday, and I'm holding it with, instead of a strand of their tin silk mohair, I'm holding it with a strand of alpaca pure, which is a very thin lace weight alpaca. And I'm really, really happy with the results because it's given me a lot of crisp stitch definition, which is great for all of these cables, but it's also adding just a little bit of a halo and a little bit more fluff to the texture. I've done the back panel, which is the most kind of annoying because it's flat, right? And it's just one big piece of knitting. And then I just stalled out. I just completely stalled out, and I have no reason to. I think honestly, it's totally beautiful and will look, I know I'll wear it a ton. I just have to kind of get back to it, and I believe I will. I really will. I shall. Again, I am a little nervous about just how big it's gonna be. I think that might be one of the reasons I stalled out a bit. Oh, it's a little bit of a loose stitch on some of these cables, but I hope I can kind of fluff those out. And yeah, so Guernsey Gensler, she's WIP number 8. Yikes, spikes. WIP number 9 is, oh no, that was 7. Sorry, that was 7. Forgive me. I'm not gonna get ahead of myself because who's counting? I am. You are. We're counting. This is the accountability portion of the experience. Okay, so that was Instant Crush, my hat for Laura, the Felix cardigan, the Sonder sweater, the satellite shawl, High Lonesome, the Guernsey Gensler. So that was 7. Number 8, I could finish tonight. I could just polish this bad boy off. This is my Kaleidoscope cardigan from Knit Collage. I love this. I honestly think I'm gonna wear it, unlike my other Knit Collage giant cardigan, which was color work. I still don't know why I did that. It was very fun to knit, but it is bananas to think that I would wear something that was knit on super bulky yarn, but in color work, so there's 2 layers of it. Like, what was I thinking? I don't know. That was almost 3 years ago though, so I can, again, forgive myself a bit. And this is so fun. All I have to do are the sleeves, and I really, really love the striping pattern that I created. I, you know, am embracing my art mom vibe. It is part of my identity. I just have to own it. And this is the most art mom you could get, I think. It's really, really fun and squishy, and I totally would love to wear this with a pair of leggings to pick up my kids from school. It's really, really fun. And thinking of like, okay, what's the friction? Like, what's the thing that's having me not finish this? And it's basically prepping all the yarn for these stripes. I had this idea that I was going to create magic balls for this and like pre-wrap all of the yarn for each sleeve, and that would make it much more efficient. I'm just going to do a couple stitches here while I talk about it. It would have been more efficient, but then it stopped me from ever doing it. And like, I think when it comes to WIPs, that's something to think about. Like, what is the friction on the project, and like trying to remove the source of the friction, and then from there kind of going all in on it. Because like the friction on the Guernsey Gensler for me is definitely what's supposed to happen next in the pattern, right? Like, that's the friction. Like, I finished a major portion of the pattern, and now I have to kind of move through the what's next part. For the satellite shawl, it's getting back into the groove of working particularly, I think, in brioche, and kind of reacquainting myself with the actual stitches that I need to make and the technique. So that's just kind of something to think about, I think, for myself, is like removing those places of friction and identifying what it is that's stopping me from moving them forward, and then using that as kind of a way to progress towards completing these things, which is the goal. So we're gonna remove the friction that is trying to make magic balls for my kaleidoscope, and just knock out these last 2 sleeves and get it done. That's the plan for this bad boy. And that is WIP number 8. WIP number 9 is my twigs. It has not progressed since you last saw it, before I left for Rhinebeck. My beautiful friend Megan was wearing hers. It looked incredible. Hers is all done in the Verb for Keeping Warm house yarn, and it is genuinely a stunning, stunning achievement in knitting. And I want to be that. I want to do it. I want it to be done. And this, the friction for me, is finding that burst of creativity and that really kind of next step to complete the longest color work section. This is a beautiful pattern by Junko Okamoto. It has some really large repeats for the color work motifs. In particular, this first section here. Mine is knit, by the way, in Lavandula's A Chic Blend, which is a all natural yarn. It's fingering weight, and it's a blend of superfine wool and mohair. So this is the first really extensive long repeat, and then there's another one as well. that is my next section. And I think that if I really focus on just that repeat, I'll be almost there and almost home. There's just one other smaller section before the ribbing. So I'm excited about it. I just have to get that surge of creativity to know that I'm gonna focus on that repeat and get it done. All right, that's number 9. And now, this is my longest WIP. It's now been 2 years. And I'm actually in a Instagram support group, a text chain support group for this sweater. It is the, oh my God. Oh, I don't even know what to say. Yeah, this is Andrea Mowry's Stria cardigan. It is a half fisherman's rib fingering weight cardigan. I really, really, really want it, and I absolutely regret my rainbow craziness. I have the yarn where I could re-knit this entire thing and just pick a different color palette, basically. Just not do the full rainbow. This is all, the thing that makes this so hard is that I love this yarn and I love this pattern, and I just made bad choices. And I didn't have the courage to just rip out and start again when I knew that I had made bad choices. I knew I had made bad choices at the split for the sleeves. I knew it was wrong, and I was like, no, maybe it'll get better. It didn't. It didn't. It still looks like a small child should wear it. It does not have the kind of sophistication that I was looking for. The palette itself is amazing. This is all yarn from Sea Change Fibers, which is an incredible dyer based out of Santa Cruz, California. She makes incredible yarn. This is all 100% California raised Rambouillet sheep. They are beautiful, beautiful colors, and they go together so wonderfully. And I should have just made a small selection. I should have just picked 4 colors and done it the way that it was written. So part of this is like my own my own personal shame spiral. Like, how beautiful would that be? Just these guys with the white background. And I have enough of the white to just redo this. And so long story short, I'm going to. I won't wear this. I don't know why I still have it, except that it is so much knitting. This is millions and millions of stitches. I mean, maybe not actually millions, but it feels like millions and millions of stitches. It really, truly does. And yeah, just made bad choices on this one. So this is my 10th WIP, which I will frog. And I have plenty of the yarn. I know that even if this comes out really noodly, even after soaking, that I could remake this project. And I would like to remake this project. I would very, very, very much like to make a Stria cardigan. I think it's the kind of weight and pattern I would wear a ton, but this is not the Stria cardigan for me. So I just need to acknowledge that and own it and move forward in that. So I shall. And on that note, I have now 9, because we're letting this go. I have 9 active WIPs, and that is 3 times what I should have. I think it's possible to, here, let me just get a sip of tea. And I will apologize / not apologize for my teacup. It is not very aesthetic, but it is incredibly functional. Anybody with kids will potentially feel me that I haven't had an entirely warm cup of coffee or tea since my child was born 7 years ago. My first child was born 7 years ago. And they have these like mug warmers, but I walk around my house with my beverage of choice. So instead, I broke down and I got a camping cup. It works amazing. This tea, piping hot. It's delicious, it's delightful. I'm really glad I went for it. I highly encourage you to, you know, it's great to have a beautiful ceramic cup. I have lots of beautiful ceramic cups and I like to use them when I know I can actually drink an entirely warm cup. But this is very effective. It's just like a Stanley. It's literally camping cup. And I have the reason I got it is I have a commuter cup by them that's super, super great. But I don't really like the idea of walking around with a commuter mug in my own house. I wanted a mug. Anyway, this is working for me. You can feel free to judge my choices, but I will tell you my tea is warm, very warm. Okay, so what are we gonna do with all of these WIPs? Community of accountability. My plan is to try to end the year with 3. If my goal is to have 3 WIPs going, can I finish 6 of these projects by the end of the year? Instant Crush for sure, Kaleidoscope for sure. Sonder, I think I could do. I think I could do Sonder for sure. Next would be probably the Felix cardigan I could do. I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish Twigs by the end of the year. Just being very honest. Oh, clearly I can finish the hat. What else? I mean, I think the last one would be Satellite and or High Lonesome. So that's my goal. I mean, it's still a really big goal, but I have some downtime. I have made some decisions to really rest or try to really not be so kind of, I don't want to say all over the place, but I really did I was very, very widely extended and spread quite thin for a lot of this fall. And as we move into the end of the year, I'm really going to try to conserve my resources more. And I'm kind of wondering if that's part of what's going on with these WIPs. Like, I was dividing myself out a lot, and what I really want to do is kind of like hone that all in together. I will not be casting on anything new, community of accountability, until I have 6 of these done. So I have those 3 WIPs going. I think that's really doable. I'm really excited to try. If I don't, I don't. I mean, this is like, it's interesting. Like, things that I learned during marathon training come up for me so often. And one of them is around like expectations and expectations of myself. And this is a really, really great way to kind of think through, for me, like, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to stay curious. I'm going to stay open. If I can't achieve this goal, it's still worth moving through the space of the attempt and of the intention. So that's what I'm going to do. That's my WIP parade. And now I guess we should get into Rhinebeck talk. I'm going to do my acquisitions as a kind of, as sprinkled into the story of my experience in upstate New York for the New York Sheep and Wool Festival and the auxiliary events. So I should start off by saying that I am super lucky that I got to go to Rhinebeck this year. I had gone the last year as well, and in both cases was able to tag this on to another reason that I had to be on the East Coast. In last year it was for a family wedding in New York, and this year I actually had a really large work trip planned for Chicago and also for Wisconsin, and so I was able to add this on to the beginning of that trip as kind of a personal excursion. It was so fun. It was super worth it. It was very rainy, and I want to say at the very start too, thank you so much to everyone who came up and said hello to me and who showed me your sweater, and we talked about your knits, and it was so much fun. I did not get enough photos, but I have so many tags, and it was such a joyful part of the experience this year. And it was a little bit different than last year, for sure. And that was really cool to see how this community has grown, and to get those little like joy bursts while going around these festivals and going throughout my day in the area was really rewarding. And I want to say thank you. And also it was a really cool way of kind of practicing what I preach about, putting yourself out there and being positive about it. And so that was just a total joy, and I really appreciate you all so much. Thank you for that experience. It was a real gift. In terms of the kind of way I navigated the weekend, I made some interesting life choices in that I flew in on the red eye from San Francisco to New York, and then got a car to the Woolen Folk Festival. I made this choice because, one, I had such an amazing experience at Woolen Folk last year. It was incredibly special, and I knew that a lot of the yarn dyers and shepherds and people I was excited to meet and see were all going to be at this event. It was quite the debacle. I think that if you're even just a little bit online in the knitting world, you will have seen crazy reports about the facilities and about the way people were treated, and it seems like, particularly from the vendor perspective, it was an absolute organizational nightmare. From the participant or spectator perspective, it was also really hard to navigate and really exclusionary for folks who had any sort of mobility concerns, or even just crowd control or safety concerns. So I do have a little bit of experience in large event planning, because a lot of the arts programming and like speaker series and things like that I've been associated with happen during art fairs. And art fairs are a lot like yarn festivals in that there are booths where different galleries come, they bring their work, they, put on these displays, and sometimes these happen in, really kind of formal settings. One of my favorites that I participated in many years was the Art Dealers Association of America Fair, which is in the Park Avenue Armory in Manhattan. It's an incredibly beautiful old building. It's stunning, blah, blah, blah. Some of them happen in tents, but they're like proper event tents. And when I heard that there were going to be tents, this is what I imagined. Like, these are large, kind of, not like a circus tent, but a formal space, like a more formal even than a wedding tent, right? There are floors. It's an impermanent but secure structure and weather safe structure. So that's kind of maybe what you could, if you were me and you saw that there was a different venue and that tents would be involved, that's what I imagined. Woolen Folk, they had like the tents that you would use on the sidelines of a kid's soccer game. Like, sorry, you can probably hear my kids in the background. We're getting ready to go to the library with their dad. But for real, like, the tents were like PTA, like Parent Teacher Association tents. Like, they weren't even the kind of tents you'd see at a farmer's market. Like, it was unheard of. It was not a proper space for setting up inventory or purchasing products. The indoor spaces were crazy crowded. Moving between spaces was nearly impossible. Obviously, there were weather concerns, but even without the weather, I have no idea, knowing like this much about event planning that I do, I have absolutely no idea how someone went on a site visit and like saw this venue and thought, oh, this is a great place to have a yarn festival. Like, it's impossible for me to conceive that thought process. Like, it's totally unreasonable to imagine that experience in this space. So obviously there's great reporting out there about this. There's actually some articles in the local newspaper. So the Woolen Folk Festival took place in a small town in upstate New York, and now the name is totally, it's gone. Sorry, it just started totally bucketing down raining and I completely forgot the name of this town. Catskills, excuse me. So it was in Catskills, New York, and the local town paper actually did a whole article about it. There's a ton of videos online and testimonials and vendor perspectives, and I mean, the exclusionary element of it too is just so disappointing, because I had a really hard time moving about the spaces in my own physical body, which usually there's no impediments to my movement. I cannot imagine if that was something that you had to think about, having to navigate that space. Like, I even was thinking about my mom, who's an incredible outdoors woman and super, super active, but like, I wouldn't want her to try to navigate a muddy gravel hill. You know, it doesn't make any sense. People were falling down, like fully falling down. So that was the physical experience of Woolen Folk. I will say that for me, there were so many of those like joy moments though, because of the social side of the experience and of the day. So I arrived, I had my bags, I had been told that there would be a bag check. Of course there wasn't a bag check, but whatever, they figured something out for me, which was great. I just had to talk to like 12 people. And then I started to make my way through the kind of buildings and tents and see what was there. I was really excited to see Explore Knits and Fibers. I think they had one of actually the worst experiences, just in, not necessarily in terms of their sales, but in terms of the physical layout of their space. I didn't make any purchases because I couldn't see the yarn. Like, I fully couldn't see the colors, and I wanted to be able to see the colors in person. I know I'll be able to purchase from her again, but it was one of those things where you really realize that these issues and problems had direct impact on people's businesses and bottom lines too. From there, I went to see the Lamb and Kid booth, and in my first experience of that space, I was trying to put together color palettes. I was completely and totally overwhelmed. Like, I have genuinely no idea what I had picked out. There was no place to put it all down and look at it. It was just a mad crush of humanity. You couldn't talk to anyone. I mean, it was really intense. And so I put everything down. I said, this is not how I want to make this purchase. I want this to be a joyful, creative experience. And I know I'm not going to make good choices right now. So I put my yarn down and I walked away. I did see a couple of samples in the booth, which were things that I thought, those are things I really want to knit. And I kind of took a break. I walked outside and I got to see two really, really special and amazing humans. And that was Rebeca Clow of the Creative Band Knitting Podcast and Amy Palco of The Meaningful Stitch, as well as Mega from Skeins of Dreams. And seeing the three of them in person for the first time, folks who I've interacted with for the past 18 months or a year, in some cases 2 years, on a fairly frequent basis, and being able to see them in person and give people hugs and look at their sweaters and just have that kind of joy burst moment was really, really special. I'm really glad that I had that experience. It started raining really intensely at that point, and actually it was kind of my luck because I got to run into the cafe with Amy Palco and have a really, really nice chat and kind of downtime and take a moment to connect in a little bit of a deeper way, and that was really special for me. I started this channel because of Amy, actually. She was just so inspiring to me, and it made me feel like it was something that I could do, and that if I wanted to do it, that I should do it. And it was the beginning of me really putting myself out there in a different way, and thinking of my engagement with my creativity and knitting in a more kind of both serious and fun way. And so anyway, that was a really, really special moment, and I'm really happy that I got to have it. Excuse me, it's getting darker and darker in here, but it was just such a joy. I then Amy went to go get ready. She was doing a presentation, and I kind of braved the second building. And when I was really looking for a lot of different dyers, but there was no map, so it was really, really hard to tell what I was going to come across. But I did find Geraldine and the Wandering Flock, and I made my first purchase. And I'm really glad I did. I was still feeling inspired by some of the samples that I had seen in the Lamb and Kids booth. And one of those samples was for a Jessie made mini mock neck tank, but it was knit at a slightly thicker gauge and on larger needles, and it was turned into this really beautiful, more kind of formal, proper vest. I loved it, and it was knit with one strand of their merino singles and a strand of mohair. I know that I love Geraldine's merino singles so much, and so I was really excited about this colorway called Celadon, which is a very, very pale sagey green. It's not got a lot of blue in it. It has a very nicely balanced yellow, I would say, undertone to it, but it's quite cool. And I'm really excited about this for a mini mock neck tank. So that was my first purchase, and it was really fun also to connect with Geraldine and see so many beautiful Wandering Flock samples and sweaters. This will be my 5th Wandering Flock project, and I just absolutely adore working with this yarn. It's incredibly special, and I feel like it's going to be beautiful. Cannot wait for this one. And so after the total fun fest that was Geraldine and the Wandering Flock, I made it outside and ran into my roommates and new knitting besties, Carmen and Jackie from Knitting a Good Yarn. And we had like a very old school, like, squee, I can't believe I get to meet you in real life moment, and it was just a total, again, like, joy bomb of a reunion. And it was really an interesting feeling, like meeting someone who you feel like you know really well, and we just had so much fun together. It was a really, really joyful time. And with them, I actually was able to kind of go back to the Lamb and Kid booth and do some playing with color. It had calmed down really, really nicely. We also got to hang out with Jack. Okay. First off, I'm so sorry for how disjointed this episode might be. I've been trying to mess with the light, and I think this is better, and then my battery ran out, and we're just going with it, folks. I'm really apologetic. I was talking about going back to the Lamb and Kid with Jackie and Carmen after having our Joy Fest for meeting in person for the first time. And we got to go to the Lamb and Kid, hang out with Sarah, the dyer there. The crowds had totally thinned out. We were able to really play with color, lay things out, really start to have those creative collaborative moments. And again, that for me was a major high point of my entire week, and I would honestly say my entire knitting year. Being able to be creative with friends, there's just really nothing better. So that is where I made my selections for my instant crush. I have been really wanting a brown toned sweater, and I think this technically is brown, right? Like it qualifies. And oh my gosh, I forgot to talk about this when I talked about the WIP of the instant crush. I also made the biggest knitting mistake I've ever made when putting together this piece. I didn't enjoy the full brown going all the way up the collar, and so I made the power move, I don't know, of thinking that I could just pick up stitches and knit a new collar on top of it. It had originally been top-down construction. Picked up all the stitches first and put them on a cord, and then tried to unpick the collar. Again, this is knit in 2 strands of Suri held together. It is sticky, icky. I could not unpick this for the life of me. This is how I spent all last Saturday morning. It was a cool, mellow, fun day. I don't know what I was thinking. I then decided, well, I can't pick this out. Maybe I'll cut it. And I did, and I still couldn't unravel it. So now I have about 2 rows of like unpicked frayed yarn at the top. I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do about it. I was really struggling. I went through a lot of stages of frustration. If you have any ideas, I don't think this is going anywhere. The fact that I can't unpick it to me means it's probably just gonna stay together and hopefully just kind of continue to felt down a little bit. If you have suggestions of what I could do now, I'm more than open to them. Please do comment below. If you have suggestions of what I should have done, I don't really need to hear it. Unfortunately, I've already been through the stages of grief on this one. I know I made some mistakes, so we don't really need to get into that. But if you do have recommendations of what I should do next, please let me know. Okay, back on track. I love the colors. I got to pick them out with my friends. It was so much fun. I am now addicted to Birdie. I get it. It is really and truly an exceptional yarn. The colors are extraordinary. In addition to these, I also picked up a different kind of lighter navy. This one's called Three Dog Night. This really vivid, insane tattersail. I mean, how good are those together? I want to do something with that. And then I went a little nutty and I got Midge. And I just love these. I may also have ordered a little bit more in a dyed to order that they did, because now I get it. These colors are extraordinary, and like I said, I do think I might want to do another one of these at some point, and or knit everything with 1 strand of Birdie for the rest of my life. Kidding, not kidding. It's that good and really, really fun. So that was really great to do all of that color play in the booth with friends old and new. There was so much just kind of creativity and collaboration, and it was really, really beautiful. The other thing that I got in the booth that I'm super excited about and was part of my plan, for those of you who watched the last video, is this amazing red. This is called Marooned. It is a very cool purpley maroon red. I love it. And I will be holding this with one strand of the pink Nutiden that I got a couple, I guess almost a year ago, and doing that marling action that I was really excited about. I even know the pattern that I'm going to use, which is the modified weekender, the kind of super kind of larger gauge weekender with a high collar. I'm really, really excited about this project. I think it will be, again, like a super wearable but beautiful knit, and I'm really excited about doing that marling. I think a good model is the Felix sweater, which is again a Nutiden with a thicker alpaca, and it's just been incredibly fun, and I think a big success. So very excited about this. And this is the big Birdie base, if I didn't mention it. It's an Aran weight yarn that is 80%, I believe, alpaca and 20% silk. Really, really stunning base, and exceptional. I mean, that's one of the reasons that you go to these places, is because you get to see things in person, and it changes how you think about them and your relationship to them, and how you would want to use them. So I feel really lucky with that experience. That's what I bought at Wool & Folk. I also got to meet so many folks in addition to everyone I've mentioned. It was genuinely, again, like these little flares of recognition and excitement, and it was really beautiful thing. So I'm really, really, really happy that I got to have that experience, and I'm really grateful to everyone who helped make it so special. The next day was day one of the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. It was a total joy. It was so much fun. And I got to catch up with some amazing folks there as well. So thank you again to everybody who came and said hello. And the first day was really, for me, I was like the lay of the land. Like, what's here? What are we looking at? What are we looking for? And it was also meetups. So I was on the hill for the tessellated pullover and tessellated vest meetup, which was super fun and very, very inspiring. I cannot believe we all made those things. Like, so much work, so much effort, and they all looked amazing. Super, super stunning. I got to snap a pic with a lot of people in all of our sweaters. I got to do a little meet and greet with Andrew Mowry, which was really lovely, and it was just a joy. It was really, really fun. I totally want to do it again. I get it. I hadn't finished. I was also a kind of point of pride because in my like moment of redemption, because of course I didn't finish my Rhinebeck sweater and wasn't able to stay for the meetup last year, and so this year I felt like very good having like been there, done it, seen everyone's vibe, and it was really, really lovely. And what else happened that first day? Oh, I had seen, and again, like, the samples that were so inspiring are not just what's in people's yarn booths, but also it's like a walking runway at these events, because you're able to see people in their knits and see how they move in the world. And one of the knits that I was seeing more and more was the Academia sweater vest. Loving it. And you know, it's usually held with multiple colors, but I was super inspired by one, sorry, here it is, by one that had 2 colors and then a Spincycle, and it is a sport-based, a sport weight pattern. And so I was really inspired by this Hudson Sport, a really great neutral navy, and I am going to be pairing it with this very, very pale pink, kind of a ballet pink, and I'm thinking that I may hold a strand of Spincycle as well, but I'm not sure. I think honestly, even just with 2 colors, this is going to be a really, really beautiful knit, and I'm excited about having 2 vest projects to throw on my needles after I'm moving through the WIP vest. So that's all I got on day 1. I did go by, as I mentioned before, Bonnybrooke Farms, which is where I got the extra silver for my Sonder sweater by the Petit knitter. And they also though had a couple skeins of dyed yarns. So they have their own fin sheep yarn, which is undyed, and then another farmer or another compatriot of theirs did some dyed with this indigo. So I was really excited to pick that up, and this is a worsted weight, so it's a little bit thicker of a spin than the fin sheep sport, which is what I'm doing the Sonder in. That was day one. Day two was really fun and focused. I just knew I wanted one more quantity of some really juicy farm yarn, and that's exactly what I got. I also got to see Carmen almost abduct a sheep, which was kind of sort of amazing. Just this incredibly beautiful moment where we connected with a shepherd who was raising Santa Cruz Island sheep, which is a very rare breed that's from here in California. The Channel Islands are off the central coast of California. The most well-known one is probably Catalina, but Santa Cruz Island is another one of them. And there was a breed of sheep that was raised there, farmed there. Their fleeces were in really high demand from the 1930s all the way through the 1960s. I learned all of this from the shepherd. This is like why New York Sheep and Wool is amazing, is that you're talking to the people who are the source of the materials for your creativity. And as someone who, I think we're all lifelong learners in this hobby and in this recreation and in this world and space, and so the learning that happens in collaboration with folks is really special. And so I learned about this sheep breed as Carmen literally held this baby sheep, for this little lamb, for so long. It was incredibly sweet, and I think her arms were about to fall off at the end of it. But it was a really special moment. So we had a lot of fun, more kind of sheepy moments that morning, and also came across this really special farm called Beaulaire's Orchard. And this is another case where the sample sold the product entirely. Jackie actually put on a vest made with this incredible yarn. This is a Ramondale CVM. I don't know that much about fiber, breed specific fibers. I'm really still learning, but I will tell you that this hand feel is really different. It's incredibly rich and squishy. I'm not going to use the M word, but it's almost moist. There's a sense of kind of richness and thickness to it. It is not in any way dry, if that's a helpful way of thinking about it. That said, it's still very lightweight. So I'm really excited to knit with this. So it's the sample was of this, another vest. Oh my gosh, 3 vests. That's kind of amazing. I'm going from 0 vests to potentially 3 vest projects. Incredible. So this is DK weight. It's held with this color Willow. This is a beautiful kind of gray leaning brown. And then they held it with this taupey brown to create a really low contrast marl. And it's a beautiful piece. So I really can't wait to get that on my needles as well. I did have to go back to the airport on that Sunday, so it was a bit of a briefer experience for me. I did eat some delicious Brussels sprouts. I had a great cup of coffee. I saw some really special people, and I had a really great day. So that is my Rhinebeck recap. I'm sure there's just so many great experiences and highlights. One of the evenings we had this incredible knit session with Melissa and the other co-founder of Espace Tricot in Montreal. Melissa now runs the Sonder Yarn Co. She came over for dinner, and we just talked and laughed and had these really deep conversations and knit together. And There's really nothing more special than creating these relationships around our craft, and I'm really, really grateful for the experience of being able to do that. I'm grateful to you all for helping create the space where we can connect around our craft together, and I am grateful for this space of accountability as well. So I'm going to focus on what I said and set out to do. Let's see if I can get down to 3 WIPs by the end of the year. I'm very hopeful that I'll check in with you guys again before the 2023 comes to a close, maybe hopefully in early December, and then I'll do a year-end wrap-up video, which I always, I say always, but I've only done it once, but I still go back to it myself to kind of gauge where some of my practice is kind of most fruitful, the things that I wear the most, and it's a really, really fun thing to do. So lots to look forward to as we come towards the kind of apex and high season of knitting and knit content. Thank you all for joining me, and again, sorry for any choppiness in this video, but I'm really, really glad I got to it and got it done. I'm so delighted that you were here with me on this journey. If you'd like to stay tuned, I'll put in a bunch of photos from my time in Rhinebeck, and a few, actually I'll include a few too, of my time in Chicago. Chicago peeps, what a town. Every time I go to Chicago, I just have such an amazing experience. The incredible art, the incredible people. I got to run around the Art Institute of Chicago with my good friend Caitlin Haskell, who has a beautiful show up right now, Remedio Sparrow. We got to run around when it was closed to the public. Genuinely nothing better. Had a really special and deep art experience at the Kohler Art Center in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, which is an absolutely spectacular resource in a really, really beautiful community. I loved my visit there. I loved the amazing residency program that they have, really embracing artists who are coming from all different practices. It was just a really, really special trip. So I'll throw a bunch of that footage in at the end here if you'd like to stick around. Thank you so much. It is such a joy to be with you on this journey, and happy, happy knitting. Thank you for putting yourself into the world one stitch at a time. Bye.